From the pain and made it out of Banner. Drove and see the nightlife where they call Atlanta. Southside shows for a couple dollars, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 50 of the Brew Party podcast. We made it 50 episodes, and it's another one of those pinch me moments for me. Another one of those holy shit. I cannot believe I got this person to come on the Brew Party podcast. I am so excited to welcome on the one, the only Robbie Fox, Octagon Bob, Barstool Sports own, UFC MMA correspondent, Abu Dhabi, Dana White's best friend, the number one Conor McGregor fan in the world, bassist for Pump Punk, the host of My Mom's Basement podcast. The list goes on. Robbie, thanks so much for being here, man.
Of course. Congrats on episode 50. That's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. So let's get right into you. How are you feeling, man? I know just a week ago you got back from Fight Island. You still feeling the jet lag? How's that going?
Yeah, I feel like I'm finally getting back to normal. I guess it was probably like a week ago right now as we're recording this that I got back into my apartment finally after 30 hours of travel. It was an 18-hour flight from Abu Dhabi to Vegas. And I had I think a 6-hour layover and then a 6-hour or 4 or 5, 6-hour flight back to New York. I lost track of where the hours went in all of that, but I had never experienced jet lag before. Man, it'll really get you. Can I curse on this?
Yeah.
All right. I was going to say jet lag is a motherfucker. I was going to say jet lag is a real motherfucker. I had never, ever experienced it. And for like a week. And I almost got worried that I had corona for a second because I was like, I'm so tired. And people said it's like a tiredness thing, but I don't. It's just jet lag. Everyone else on my flight said it lasted a week for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So that's such a crazy trip. I don't even know how you even mentally prepare for a 30-hour trip like that. So what are you doing on the plane when you're waiting to pass the time? Like, what anything specific you were watching, or I'm sure doing a bunch of prep for all the work you had to do once you got over there?
It was two completely different trips, like the way there and the way back. The way there was okay. I think it was 15 hours on the way there. I didn't sleep. I really can't sleep on planes. So that was like a concern for me, but I didn't sleep on the way there. I read an entire book, which I had never done in my life. Like I've read books before, but I had never just opened a book on page 1 and closed it and been done with it. So I did that. It was Cassie David's book, Larry David's daughter. Pretty funny. It's just like random stories about anxiety, depression, being Larry David's daughter, working on Curb. And then I did blogs because while I was in the air, some UFC fights were going on. It was the Holloway and Calvin Kattar card was going on actively while I was in the air. So I couldn't watch that, but I could pay attention on Twitter, write some blogs about it. I watched some highlight clips here and there. And then on the way back, so the way there, I had a whole row to myself. It's pretty empty charter. The way back, it was full. It was every other seat was full. So I had an aisle seat, couldn't really sleep. I was trying to sleep. I had been up for 24 hours at that point. I played some Nintendo Switch. I have a Mario Kart. I have Lego Marvel superheroes. I played those. I tried to watch Endgame, and halfway through it, the guy next to me had fallen asleep and he spilled a drink on my leg, so I had a damp sock, and there's nothing worse than a damp sock. So now I'm on a plane with a damp sock, and I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. I went into the bathroom to dry it off. It was torturous, and I didn't have a natural high of a victory. Conor lost, so I was just like, oh, damn.
What about an unnatural high? Did you get any of those three cheat gummies in there with you?
No, dude. So that was another thing that was no good about Abu Dhabi is they have crazy laws about that. The smallest amount of that, they find it 4 years in prison, mandatory. So I was like, I'm not risking it. So I was just dead sober. I don't drink. So that's not my thing. Yeah. So everyone else on the flight was like, we're going to get shit-faced to make sure that we could fall asleep for this thing. Even the fighters, and that was also one of the funniest parts was getting on the charter back. There were so many fighters around me. All the fighters were on my plane. I said it should be illegal, how the president can't fly with the vice president. Bro, I was on a plane with fucking Bruce Buffer, Dustin Poirier, John Anik, Daniel Cormier, Billy Quarantillo, Steamroller Frivola. Like, it was the UFC roster. And I was just like, I was, and this is how I rationalized the trip. You said, like, how do you mentally prepare for that? You don't. You dread it the whole time. And then once you walk past first class and you see everyone like icing their faces, icing their knees, they're all bloody still. They have blood on their clothes. You're like, all right, it could be worse.
Yeah. Do you still get do you still get pretty starstruck in that situation around those guys?
Yeah, I'm good at like hiding it at this point, but
Right.
the feelings never go away. Like for me, I never look at a guy like whatever, unless I think they're an asshole, unless like they have like idea or experiences of being assholes in the past. But for me, I'm just like, I hide it well. I had an experience with Conor poolside that like wasn't on camera, wasn't anything. It was just I was up there to interview Steamroller Matt Frivola, and Conor walked up. And I was able to like play it really cool to where I was with like Billy Q and Steamroller. Those are two stoolies and two like really good guys in the UFC, and I've known them for a few months now, and they were both like, you kind of played it cool there. You came off all right.
Yeah.
And then Conor went back to his breathing exercises, and I got out while I was ahead. I didn't even say goodbye. I was like, see ya.
Absolutely. So you got to interview Conor. You got a little one-on-one that was kind of impromptu. I don't think you really knew it was coming.
No, I didn't.
What's going through your mind when it was it Dana that pulls you aside that said, "Hey, I got Conor for you," or how did that come about?
So Dana was the one who got Conor for me, but it wasn't him who actually was the one that pulled me aside. He told me, I went to the Wednesday card. It was the Michael Chiesa versus Neil Magny card. And I saw him there. It was the first time I'd seen him on Fight Island. He was like, "Hey, kid." He's exactly like he is like on camera. He's like, "Hey, kid, what's going on? You love the island? Isn't this fucking awesome?" I was like, "Yeah, Dana, it's awesome." He's like, "Are you interviewing McGregor this week?" And I said, "No, like not as of right now. I don't have anything scheduled." He's like, "Oh, come on, why not?" He's like, "You came all the way out here. Wouldn't that be awesome?" I was like, "Yeah, that would be awesome, sir." He's like, "You want me to see what I could do?" And I was like, "Yes, I would like you to see what you can do. Like, if you're offering, absolutely." And I don't ask for anything. Like, I've never even, people always say, like, before this happened, they would always say, like, when is a McGregor interview coming? I would always be afraid to ask, because I'd be like, would that come off bad? You're asking on fight week. Is he trying to like prepare? He probably has a ton of media anyway. So I said, screw it. Yeah, do what you can do. And at the presser, I had an interview with Dana coming up where it was like, we were going to do the presser. Afterwards, I was going to go interview Dana.
Right.
As I was making my way back there, I was with a UFC PR lady. Her name is Knobs. She's awesome. And she showed me her phone. She had like just gotten a text, and it said, Dana says Conor just agreed to do an interview with Robbie. If he could do it right now, we could give him a few minutes. And now I'm like, oh shit. She like literally was just like, I was like, yeah, I could do it right now. Like, let's do it. I grabbed my the tripod that my mom bought me that I took on this trip.
Yeah.
I start like undoing it. I'm like, oh my God, I only have my phone with me. So I'm like, of course, this is the most Barstool way it could go down. Like the Barstool difference. I have my phone and like my mom, the tripod my mom got me. And I said right beforehand, I was wearing like, I think I'm wearing like a collared shirt under this. I was kind of wearing like a flannel. And I was like, hold on, I have a green hoodie in my backpack. I was like, can I just throw that on real quick? And they're like, yeah, like, we don't care. I wanted Conor to know when he was walking into that room that like, bro, let's not even act like you're trying to do an interview with a journalist right now for a media source. Like, you're doing an interview with a fan. That's exactly what this is. So I threw on the green hoodie, and it was literally, you see in the video, like I wanted them to leave in how sudden it was, where you see like I turned the tripod to where you see it for the whole video, take the mask off, and he's in the room. It was crazy.
Absolutely, man. So, well, I actually have a listener comment here that's one of your classic videos from the whole Conor incidents. Robbie, were you able to send Conor one of those signs from the hearing/bail bond video?
No, I wasn't. I don't know what he said at the end of the interview, like he referenced the signs that I brought. He's like, you got to give me those. And he looked like pretty serious about it. I have them in my apartment. Like, I don't know why I never got rid of them, to be honest, probably because I'm like a bit of a hoarder, but if he wants them to put up an SBG or something, they could look cool there. But no, I don't know where I would say. I think he was being nice. I would hope he was being nice, because I think those would be tough to send. How would you send those? Do you put like the cardboard inside another cardboard like thing?
Yeah. You get a big ass envelope or something, or saran wrap that bitch and just hope
Yeah,
that
true. Saran wrap it and slap a label on it.
Dude, absolutely. So I want to get into a little bit, right before the show started, you were telling me like how you got involved at Barstool. You're the legit MMA guy for Barstool. You're legit one of the top MMA guys, UFC guys on social media, on the internet. Absolutely. You're my favorite one to follow. Like on this card, my buddy Chris and I, who's also a big fan of you, we're watching the fight and we're following your Twitter feed the whole time, looking, saying, "Do you see Robbie? You see Robbie?" And then like your tweet where the one guy asked, he's like, "How are you even watching this? I can't even stream it." And you go, "I'm in the third row," which was incredible. But so tell me a little bit about how you got like involved at Barstool and now how you're best buddies with Dana White. You're going to Fight Island. You're covering any and every UFC event.
Yeah, so I got involved with Barstool super young. Like the first email I got, the first interaction with anyone I had at Barstool was when I was like 14 years old with Big Cat. And it was an email back from him that was like, hey man, like cool stuff, but you're 14. We can't hire you. Because I was trying to get hired like back then. Right. I discovered Barstool when I was 12 or 13, I think, from my older cousin. He showed it to me. I was just like, this is dope. The blogs were so funny. I would laugh out loud reading blogs, which like, as a 12-year-old, like you don't read things online that make you laugh, but Barstool was doing that. And I thought everyone at Barstool was basically getting paid to be friends. Like that's what it looked like to me when I watched the rundown content, the Bro show. So I started applying then, and any way I could, I would make t-shirt designs. I would send them in. I would make sample blogs. I would do podcasts, sample podcasts. I would do video edits, certain different edits on the rundown or whatever, and say, here's all the things I could offer. Here's my ideas, whatever. It was like 5 years of that where I would get replies here and there. Like I even had Dave send me a check once for a couple $100s when I was in high school because he used a t-shirt design of mine when I was like a freshman. I was like, this is amazing. I have hundreds of dollars from Dave Portnoy. I didn't want to cash the check because he had signed it. And I was such a Barstool fan, which is so funny now. Like actually I get to cash checks from him now. But I eventually got hired by Riggs, the golf guy, which we talked a little bit about off the air.
Yeah.
As I said, if you hear anything muffled in the background on my end, it's Trent recording foreplay. But he didn't have an intern when the company moved to New York. Everyone, like a bunch of bloggers, got interns. And since he was a newer guy at the time, this is like 4 years ago now, going on 5 years ago, he didn't get one. And I just sent him an email like, hey man, I don't know why you didn't get an intern, but I would love to do it. Here's my resume. It was like very, like any high school kid's resume, like you put random shit in there. I'm great at Excel, whatever. Right. And he saw that I had some podcast editing experience, which was true. I was doing my own podcast at the time for like a year. I was co-hosting a couple podcasts, and I could do the very basics of podcast editing at that point. Right. And he said, we're thinking about starting like a golf podcast at Barstool, me and Trent. And we would love for you to be able to edit some of the early test episodes so that we could present to Dave and say, hey, do you think this could be successful? Absolutely. That wound up being Foreplay. And it was Foreplay at the time. Like it was called Foreplay originally when I came on and everything. And I like designed the original logo. If any OG Foreplay fans remember the old school logo, it was a cartoon version of Trent and Riggs. And like they were holding golf clubs as microphones. Trent had a driver and Riggs had like a pink, it looked like the kind of putter you would get at a mini golf course, like the pink rubber putter. And I like designed that. I designed some early merch. I edited the podcast for months. I went to Augusta with them. Augusta National is like the first golf course I ever went to, which will infuriate any golf fan listening to this right now. They're like, you motherfucker, are you kidding me right now? But yeah, that was the start. And then as soon as I got my foot in the door, I knew I wanted to do MMA stuff, because that was what Barstool didn't have. It was a void I knew I could fill. And it was something that I'm so passionate about. Like I'm passionate about a bunch. And now I'm fortunate enough to get to cover all of that stuff for Barstool. I get to do the Star Wars stuff. I get to do the music stuff. I get to do the MMA stuff. But at that point, I was like, the only thing I'm concerned about is getting UFC coverage on Barstool. I would love that. I think I'm the guy for it. So I started writing blogs, showing them to Dave. Dave started liking them. And then by the time I started making a couple videos, he was like, let's move you off Foreplay and make you just an MMA guy, like a content guy by yourself, which was amazing. He told me that in Augusta, actually. He told me like, this is going to be your last trip with Foreplay. I'm going to take you off, and we'll get them a new intern. We'll get them a new producer or whatever. And I think what helped a lot actually was I was coming right off a WrestleMania trip where I got super kicked. I did like a spot with a wrestler who was my buddy, where I was like, we'll do a spot where like I hold somebody, and then it'll look like you're going to super kick him. He'll move out of the way, hit me. We had one shot for it. There was like 1,000 people in the crowd. It was the most nervous still to this day. Like I remember the feeling right before we did it. I was like, I think I'm going to throw up. Like, oh my God, this is so nerve wracking. We did it and we fucking nailed it. Like it's the one, might be the thing I'm proudest of, because when I watch the video back, it's like undeniable. Like, oh man, that was good. And Dave loved that. So he was like, man, let's make you your own guy. And from there, it's been, pretty crazy MMA wise. I think the platform of Barstool has allowed me to get through doors that people probably haven't before. It probably allowed me to start my relationship with Dana off on a great note, because he was a fan of the site just as a New Englander. Like he would see the Instagram. He's been following the Instagram for years and stuff. And Uncle Dana is such an Instagram guy. He's frying everyone up in his own comments every week. But it's the opportunity that afforded me. And then I think people just realize that like, I'm a fan of this stuff. I'm never trying to do the gotcha stuff. I'm never trying to instigate between two fighters. I just love this stuff. I want to hear about the inside takes. As a kid with anxiety, I always love asking fighters about like what they feel right before they walk out to the octagon. Like I love that shit. The stuff that I just talked about with being on the UFC charter with all those people, like looking over and seeing Daniel Cormier and then hearing a voice and being like, do I hear John Anik? And you turn around and you're like, it is fucking John Anik. Oh my God. It's so cool. Like, and I'm not jaded towards it at all. Like it's so cool to me.
That's absolutely insane, man. I can't even imagine, like, as somebody, I'm a huge fan of like stand-up comedy myself, and I've met a couple comedians, and like 2 years ago I met Bert Kreischer, and I just had that.
I saw that. That was like one of the reasons, like I replied immediately when I saw your tweet, because I'm a huge Two Bears 1K fan. I listen to every episode of Two Bears.
I love that fucking podcast, dude. That is in my rotation every week. But so I met him, and I'm like just hovering because I like just cannot believe. I'm like, holy fuck! Like he's like right next to me. Like my girlfriend and I, we won like the raffle to go meet him after the show, and then he does this thing where he goes out to the bars, and there's a bar right next to this the venue in St. Louis, and I'm like taking multiple pictures with him. And there was one point he's like, do you need another picture or something, man? I'm just like, had to be like, no, I'm sorry. I'm just a huge fan. Like, I just want to be like around you for a minute. But anyway, getting back to it real quick. And then I have some questions about McGregor. What's a typical day like at Barstool Sports for you? Just a typical day at work. I feel like at any day you go in there, something different is going to be happening. Somebody new is going to be there. There's just always like, it's just chaos. It seems like.
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer, because I feel like there's not like the typical day at Barstool. Like it's so different every day, and it's been so different since COVID. Like we've been going in so less frequently. You really go in if you have like a video to shoot or something. People aren't going in just to blog anymore, because it doesn't really make sense. But I would say pre-COVID, like I don't know, you wake up not that early. Like Barstool bloggers are afforded the opportunity to all wake up at like 8 or 9 a.m. And then you look on the internet for shit that you think is funny, start getting it up. You probably get a blog up before you go into the office. Then you go into the office, and like you said, you literally have no idea. I went in for the first time in a while today. It's the first time since I had been back from Abu Dhabi. And the front desk had just changed. It's a pirate ship now. Like when I tell you our front desk is a literal pirate ship, it looked like we're in Disneyland, like on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. It's just like, I guess this is a thing now. And you go in, and it's like, I went into my desk and there was a skateboard on it with Baby Yoda on the back. I was like, I guess fucking someone sent me a Baby Yoda skateboard. This is unbelievable. It's like Christmas. And then the guests, like before COVID, oh my God, the guests that you would never know who was coming in the day of, because it's almost kept like secret, because it's like, don't make a big deal out of it. We don't want it to leak. If say PMT's got a huge guest or something, it's like, we don't want the social media person that doesn't know you're supposed to save it to accidentally Snapchat something or whatever. But like, I'll never forget being in HQ2 the first time A-Rod walked in, not knowing A-Rod was about to walk in, just like waiting for the bathroom. And then like Alex Rodriguez walks in, and you're like, that's fucking Alex Rodriguez. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm a Yankee fan too. So it's like, for me, especially, There's been moments where, who was it? Was it Nate or was it Roan? Someone walked in on Ice Cube pooping, and it was like, who would have? And they didn't know Ice Cube was in the office, so they just like opened the bathroom and they were like, "Oh, sorry," and they were like, "Wait, is that fucking Ice Cube in there? Did I just walk in on Ice Cube?" So like, yeah, but I mean, there's not the typical day. There's really not.
No, that's incredible. As soon as I said that, I was like, actually, you're right. There's no way that's a typical day. It's a dream job for so many people, and so lucky that you're able to work there every day, man. That's so awesome. So a couple comments I want to get to. What is it like? What was it like meeting McGregor for the first time outside the courts?
A whirlwind, like almost similar to the last meeting in that like didn't know it was happening. Obviously you see it in the video if you watch the video on YouTube, and it's like his lawyer comes out and he said something sketchy to us. He said like, "I get the flakes" or something, "follow me for the flakes." He said something about the flakes and I didn't know what that meant. I think it's like someone talked to me afterwards and they were like, "That's like a term for paparazzi. He probably thought you were paparazzi." I was like, "Oh, that makes sense," because I had cameras with me and shit. But I followed him to a bail bonds place, and then all of a sudden McGregor pulled up, like shook his hand. I was trying to be like very keep it cool, respectful. He went into the bail bonds place, and I was waiting with my phone, with like the camera already pulled up outside of it for when he came out. And as soon as he came out, I was like, "Hey man, cool if I get a picture." We got a quick picture, and that was it. So it was such a whirlwind, and that just like, I don't know, I didn't even have time to think about it. It's just like, oh my God, that just happened. That was crazy. And then you like immediately look at your phone afterwards to make sure you got the picture and it wasn't blurry. And you're like, "Oh my God, I got the picture." And then, like when you throw that up on Twitter, it's going to explode. Like that was my favorite part, by the way, of the whole Fight Island experience, was probably the time between getting the McGregor interview and tweeting it. I was like, I knew that shit was going to blow up on Twitter, the initial clip. So I was like, I got to find a good little teaser to put out before we put the interview out. And when I did it, it's like, I think it's the biggest tweet I ever put out in my life. So it was like, that was the coolest thing to like see all the replies come in, see like people basically as shocked as I was to get the interview, because they didn't know what was happening. I didn't text anyone. I wasn't like, "Yo, I just interviewed Conor." I was like, I'm just going to throw this up on Twitter. And the first thing they'll see of it is the actual video of us together.
Yeah, absolutely. I just know there's so many reactions like, "Octagon Bob, you son of a bitch. You did it again. You did it again."
Tweets cracked me up.
I know. So here's one last listener question, then we're actually going to get into the McGregor stuff. So this is my friend Sam Cardona. She actually does a podcast herself, The Girl Who Talks Sports. She's out of New York as well. So is the lightsaber tattoo on Robbie's forearm that Mark Hamill is holding in his Twitter AVI reel? I need to see.
That's the picture, but right there.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm holding it.
Yeah.
And this is oh God, I'm wearing like a flannel, so it's so tight right now. But that is, and see, I've got a bunch of shit around it now. But the lightsaber is real. Yeah. I have a nephew. So my brother's firstborn, my brother's just as nerdy as I am. Like if you met my brother, you'd be like, "Oh, okay, that's where Robbie Fox comes from." And I mean, he's got the colorful sleeve of tattoos, everything. He's a drummer, rock and roll fan, all that. So he named his firstborn Luke. So I had to get Luke's lightsaber for him. And then he named his second daughter Harley. So I've got like Harley Quinn's diamonds up on my upper arm. So yeah, the lightsaber is very, very real. That was another one, the Mark Hamill one. I would compare that so much to meeting Conor in the courthouse, because that was like at Good Morning America. I didn't know what was happening, and then it happened. We took a quick picture. He was the one that was like, he's like, "Let's do it. I'll grab your arm." I was just like, "Oh my God, my face is like the real face of like, oh my God, Luke Skywalker."
Holy fucking shit.
The craziest part, I had gotten that tattoo done the day before, not on purpose. That was a coincidence. I had the tattoo appointment booked for months. All of a sudden, Jeff D. Lowe, who works at Barstool with me,
shout out to the dozen.
Jeff is the whole reason that happened. Jeff took that picture with his camera, with his phone, before he worked at Barstool, years before he worked at Barstool. He worked at Good Morning America, and he hit me up. We were friends. He was like a stoolie, basically, but we were basically just friends through Twitter and stuff, Star Wars fans. We would talk Star Wars. And he said, "Dude, Mark Hamill's doing GMA to promote Last Jedi. Do you want to come in? And I'll put you in the audience. You could just like see him up close." I was like, "Yeah, Luke Skywalker, are you kidding me?" And there's the pictures from that episode are so funny. I was the only male in the audience. So it's like a bunch of like housewives and like their daughters, and then like me just sitting there like waiting for Mark Hamill. And right after the appearance, Jeff was like, yo, come over here quick. So I like ran across the Good Morning America set. People are trying to stop me. He's like, no. And then he's like, show him your tattoo. I showed him the tattoo. I don't know if you have tattoos, but the day after you get one, it feels like sunburn. Like it doesn't feel good. It's a little painful. And I show him the tattoo and he fucking like slapped it and grabbed it up. And I was just like, oh, that hurt a little bit, but okay. This is Mark Hamill. We took the picture and I said immediately afterwards, I was like, the scarring is probably still healing. So maybe Mark Hamill's DNA is like forever inside that lightsaber.
Dude, that's absolutely insane. Dude,
Yeah.
And Luke Skywalker grabbed your fucking arm, man. That's awesome. That's so awesome.
People said when I took that picture with Conor, they were like, oh, new profile pic. I was like, guys, that's a great pic I took with Conor. Nothing's ever going to replace Mark Hamill with my Twitter profile pic. Come on now.
You just got options, man. There needs to be you just scroll through however many. The one
like a gift, they could flash.
Another one that I think is great is you with Dana with the shirt that says, "What the fuck does Darren Ravel know about fighting?" That's also incredible. So speaking of fighting, let's talk a little bit about UFC 257. So it didn't go as planned, for us Conor McGregor fans. But what I do want to know, I had my buddy Ryan help me out here with these questions. He does a weekly gambling segment with me on the podcast. Huge UFC fan, huge McGregor fan. Told me to pass along a message to say hello. My buddy Ryan Maloney. So Ryan to Robbie, he says hello.
Ryan,
what is it like to experience a McGregor walkout in person? That absolutely incredible from watching it on TV. In my mind, the best walkout in combat sports. And then how much of a difference was there between that walkout for the Cowboy fight and then now with a full arena and then now with the less capacity at Fight Island?
That's a great question. The McGregor walkout is my favorite thing in the world, especially thinking back to like UFC 189 when they actually had Sinead sing him out and like he pointed to her as he was coming out. And it was such like the Irish were going crazy in the background. It gives me chills just thinking about it. I have been lucky enough to cover and go to 4 McGregor fights now. The first of which being the Mayweather fight, then the Khabib fight, then the Cowboy fight, then this one. The Mayweather one, that was actually what I was looking forward to the most because I knew in my heart of hearts that McGregor was probably going to lose that fight. I said, oh my God, the pageantry of it all as a pro wrestling fan, like that's what I'm looking forward to, the circus act. And who does walkouts better than boxing when it's all ramped up? Like I think to Floyd having Lil Wayne sing him out to the ring and he's got the circus behind him, literally clowns doing like juggling things, Tyson Fury being carried out on the throne, even Deontay Wilder, which he later blamed the loss on that big contraption he had on. But when he's walking out, you're all tweeting about it. It was cool, right? The pageantry. That was the lamest walkout McGregor ever had. For whatever reason, the UFC nails it. They have the Foggy Deuce start it, and then it fades into Notorious, Notorious, right, into Hypnotize. And then they show McGregor at that point, and the crowd kind of erupts at that point. For the Mayweather fight, he just walked out while Foggy Deuce was going on. He was in the ring by the time it transitioned to, I think he did Mo Money, Mo Problems for that fight.
Yeah.
And it faded out the second time Biggie came on. And it was just like, oh, we were waiting for a walkout. So that was lame. And then the Khabib fight, it was everything I ever wanted it to be because the animosity in the building for that fight, it felt like the building was shaking. It was like, I've been to a couple WrestleManias at this point. WrestleMania does entrances so well, right? That's like basically what they're known for. Always a couple awesome entrances. There was nothing like Conor at UFC 229 against Khabib. There's nothing like even Khabib walking out with his papapka on his head, and there's just like the Russian anthem behind him. Like it felt like Rocky IV, like Drago coming out to the ring. Cowboy, another one that felt just like the Khabib one. It was electric with the crowd. And then this one was interesting. We were in an 18,000 seat arena, and there were only 2,000 people there. But by the time McGregor started walking out, it felt full. Like it felt really, really big. I went to that Wednesday card that I was referencing, and during the main event of that night, we heard someone drop a plate in one of the suites, like down by the octagon. We heard a plate drop. You could it was quiet. For the main event, oh my God, it felt like a full arena. It really did, especially when you're focused on the fight and you're like wrapped up in it. You didn't notice that the arena was only 10% full, not even. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little over 10% full. It was pretty crazy. And in between McGregor's walkout and Poirier's walkout, the crowd started with an Olay chant, and you could really hear it then.
Yeah, that was awesome because you had covered one of the fights with no fans at all, right?
Yeah,
Prior
that was
prior to
Stipe
this.
and Daniel Cormier this summer, and that was at the Apex. That was crazy. That was,
Yeah.
I compared it to like a high school wrestling meet. If you ever went to like a wrestling meet in high school,
Mm-hmm.
but almost not even as loud if you went to like a decent high school.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, so I just that whole spectrum because I'm sure it was just nice to even have, you said only 2,000 fans, but just have anybody there, have any energy in the arena had to feel awesome. So piggybacking off the walkout, Bruce Buffer is a guy you've mentioned before. One of my favorite people in sports. Like I get chills every time he announces it. What is it like to hear him in person? Because I would be ready. I'm already ready to run through a wall hearing him on television, Robbie, but like in person, I think I would be ready to get in the ring, and I am not a fighter at all.
Well, what makes it the best too is now, and this is more of a recent thing. Like the past few years, the UFC have done this. When they do the lighting, where like all the lights go out, but just the spotlights go on like the fighters and Bruce. Oh my God. It feels like a movie. It feels like you're inside a movie when he's like actually calling it. And the funniest thing, when we went to that fight with no fans, like he's there, obviously.
Mhm.
And the second we walked in, the first thing we heard him doing was like, I don't know, like a swipe up. Like he had his phone and he's like, it's time. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like Bruce Buffer's filming a selfie. It's time right now. He's probably doing a cameo or something. And then we look at him later on and he's doing like workouts and he's like lifting his legs and he's like kind of like getting in shape and he's like, and I'm like, oh shit, he's hyping himself up to fucking jump in the main event because he's like hurt himself doing that in the octagon. I think he's like torn something in his knee before. So I told my cameraman, I was like, you got to start filming that. That's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
So we filmed it and I tweeted it. And then Bruce came right over to us and he's like, are you guys Barstool? I was like, yeah. And he's like, you guys got me. And he was so cool about it. He's like, that was a funny clip. He retweeted it. He's like, have a good time. And then afterwards, this was such a fun, I don't think I've ever said this before. He said like, he was like, hey, Robbie, as I'm walking away, like I was in a commercial, you know, that like Mean Joe Green commercial where he's like, hey kid, and he throws him a towel. He says like, hey, Robbie. I turned around and I swear to God, Bruce Buffer said, have fun with it. And I didn't know what that meant. I was just like, thanks. I don't know. Have fun with it. What? What does that mean, Bruce? But it was really awkward. My cameraman was there for it. And he's like, what was that all about? I was like, I don't know. Bruce, have fun with it, Bruce Buffer.
If Bruce says have fun with it, then you fucking have fun with it. I don't know what it means.
I'm gonna have fun with it. Yeah, I'm gonna keep having fun with it.
I think my favorite is when he's obviously he's in the middle of the ring, and then whoever he's announcing, they're like standing right in front of him, just like fuck yeah, and they're like doing the fist bump and shit. Like that is my favorite. So I got a couple more.
Have tried to track that. Like if the fist bump is a jinx. They're like, is the Bruce Buffer fist bump like how do fighters perform after actually fist bumping Bruce? Should they not do it?
Do you have the numbers on that? Because as
if you look them up on Twitter, I guarantee people track it. People are like so like up to date with the Bruce Buffer fist bump count.
As a terrible gambler, I'm going to have to look that up. So as far as McGregor's timeline goes, so Poirier with the TKO in the second round. McGregor didn't look bad during this fight. I thought in the first round he looked great. I thought he won the first round, at least in my opinion. And the second round, you could just see those leg kicks from Poirier were really just taking a toll on him. Your reaction video sucks that it had to be a loss, but your hair was incredible, man. Absolutely incredible. If you can take anything away from that.
Yeah. The small victories we took.
Absolutely. So going off this loss to Poirier, what is the next move for McGregor? What do you think his timeline for the next year is like? First fight after recovery, or does he get a title shot? Does he go back to boxing?
I hope not. I hope he doesn't do the boxing thing. It's a possibility, I guess, and it's something he's passionate about. I get that he's done everything he could do in MMA, so it's like I can't fault the guy for that. But I would prefer him to stay in MMA. Coach Kavanaugh, his coach, said that he's already been harassing everybody about the rematch. He wants the Dustin Poirier rematch. Poirier said in his post-fight presser that that's one of the only fights that would interest him and make him want to return to the octagon right away, which makes sense. He made, $500,000 just from a donation from Conor to his charity in this fight. And then he made whatever on top of that from the UFC. He's going to auction off his fight kit. The amount of attention it brings to him, the amount of attention it brings to his charity, I think that it makes a lot of sense for everyone involved. For Conor, obsessing over it; for Poirier, take it again for the UFC, because this pay-per-view did 1.6 million buys. And like you said, wasn't like Conor, looked horrible and got beat and everyone said, all right, he's done. If, let's say, Khabib's retired, at that point, I think Dustin Poirier might have just proved himself as the best lightweight in the world on Saturday. I think that's fair to say, after he knocked out Gaethje, after he did what he did to Dan Hooker, after he did what he did to Conor, first person to ever finish Conor like that in the cage. If that's the case, Conor came very close to defeating the best lightweight in the world, right? So it's like, I think he's still up for grabs. He's never lost a trilogy bout. He's still 0-0 on those. So I'm taking the small victories, as we said. I think that the Poirier trilogy will come next. If you asked me what I would do next, is I don't know if Poirier would want to face Charles Oliveira. I would love to see him face Charles Oliveira. I would then love to see Michael Chandler face Justin Gaethje. I think those two would just pair up amazingly, and they're kind of cut from the same cloth, in that Gaethje for a long time was like, is he ever going to go to the UFC? He was the World Series fighting guy. It was like, is he going to come over? He finally did. He impressed big on his debut. Michael Chandler just did the exact same thing. And then I would love to see Conor and Nate fight one more time. Like, bring that kind of badass side of Conor out. Listen, I love the respectful Conor, the more Bruce Lee, martial arts, I'll dust myself off and come back. But if he fights Nate again, it's going to bring a little bit of that Street Fighter Nate out. It's going to bring a little bit of that shit-talking Conor out. And I think that's a very winnable fight for Conor right now. I also think it adds a lot more intrigue to the Poirier rematch if he's coming off a win, and it's like he's rebuilding himself.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dana White had said, he thought Conor might not be as hungry anymore. Do you think that he's correct? Like that he might be nearing the end of his MMA career?
It's tough because the term hungry, when used like that, I would say, it's kind of impossible for a guy who's done as much as McGregor's done and is worth as much as McGregor's worth to be hungry. And maybe even McGregor would admit that he's not as hungry as he used to be, but he still loves the game. That's what he says keeps him coming back. So it's like, how much success is determined in the hunger, and how much success is determined in the skill? Because another thing about him into this fight, there's no excuses. Everyone around him still right now is saying, you saw the best Conor you'll ever see on Saturday, last Saturday, whatever it was. It was just the leg kicks did him in. He wasn't prepared for that. It kind of killed his leg, and then he was immobile. We trained the right way. He ate the right way. He didn't deviate from anything this camp. Like, this was the best camp we could have put him through. So maybe he is less hungry than before. I think the love of the game is still there, based on him coming back and even wanting to fight Dustin Poirier. Like, people always would say, like, oh, McGregor doesn't want to fight so-and-so, McGregor doesn't want to fight so-and-so. And I would always respond to that with, like, the guy's trying to fight Khabib at all costs. Like, he's the one being like, please let me in the cage with Khabib. Nobody else is saying that about Khabib. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you think the result of this fight, though, against Poirier, like, helps him, like, maybe get more hungry, as we keep saying?
It could, because, I mean, what we saw when he lost to Nate Diaz was that he became obsessed. Everyone said that, like, that was how they described him. You could see it if you've seen his documentary on Netflix, the Notorious documentary. After he loses, he was determined. He signed up for the McGregor Fast program. He hired, like, new nutritionists to help him with his cardio. He just wanted nothing other than to get that win back. So if he feels the same way about this one, yeah, absolutely. And it was also an easy loss for me to take as a McGregor fan, because I also like Poirier. How can you not? You know what I mean? So it's like, when he wins and you think, all right, he just became 10x more popular than he ever was. That's a guy that deserves it. That's a guy who, when people look back at his fighting career, they're going to be fucking mind-blown at some of the wars he's been in. He's a guy that can make people an MMA fan. He's an American. How can you not root for an American at times? He's a guy who, used fighting to get off the streets, out of juvenile detention, and is now using that to give back and take underprivileged youth off the streets. Like, you can't root against the guy. So I looked at the lightweight top 15. If I could pick, hey, one of these guys is going to beat your guy Conor, of course, I would pick Poirier 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, no, like I said earlier, me and my buddy Chris we were watching the fight, and that's what we both said. Like we were both for Conor. Like it's hard not to root for Conor, but if anybody's gonna beat him, like we're really okay with Poirier. We were
Yeah.
both fans of
It's
Poirier.
like
That
good dude. Like the videos of him and his wife afterwards, when his wife is like, "That's the last time you're ever gonna doubt my husband." Like I had like tears in my eyes
yeah,
watching that, and it's about my guy getting knocked out, but it was just
yeah,
like a beautiful moment for them. The picture of her pointing to him in the octagon, like holy shit, that's one of the best pictures I've ever seen in MMA.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so, here's a hypothetical question for you. What is your dream like mega fight for Conor? It could be any fighter in MMA history, Prime McGregor versus Prime blank, whoever.
That's a great question. Yeah, think about this one for a second. I mean, I think about as a Jersey guy, like the Frankie Edgar that fought Gray Maynard in that trilogy versus
Mhm.
like a young featherweight McGregor. I think those fights were at lightweight, but that kind of young featherweight McGregor that would just throw kicks up the ass, like he had that karate style where he was just fucking the spinning heel kick, spinning back kick, like a Conor McGregor versus a Frankie Edgar. I mean, one of my all-time favorite fighters. I would say my all-time favorite other than Conor is Joe Lozon, just
Okay.
because he was the most electric, most eccentric. Every fight you knew was going to be amazing. He would always get the bonus. So like again, like an up and coming McGregor versus Joe Lozon would be a banger of a fight.
Absolute banger, man. Bangers only. Bangers only. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to what Connor has like in the future. I'm curious to see because he's the biggest draw in UFC, no matter if he's not really in his prime now or not. Like he puts
I'm
ashes.
fine with him not being a title contender too. I think he will be a title contender. I don't think he's done with that. But in the situation where, let's say he said, "Oh no, I don't want to be a title contender anymore. I want to take a super fight with Nate. Let's finish up the trilogy with Nate. Let's do a super fight with so and so," and he picks opponents here and there. I'd be down for that. Like the Cowboy fight, that was awesome. Like
Yeah.
I know people said he fought a tomato can cowboy or whatever. I don't know, man. I was excited about it. I'd watch him kick some ass in 40 seconds, not get hit, and get to cut a couple WWE style promos on the way.
Anytime you can watch somebody fuck another dude up with his shoulder, I'm in for it.
By the way, those shoulder strikes came back in a big bad way against
They
Poirier.
were they not like
At the octagon? Like the crowd is actually cheering too. It's become like a signature move, I think.
it almost looked like they were like talking in each other's ears, and McGregor was like coaching Poirier how to hit him with his shoulder. Like that's what it looked like. Another guy that you had mentioned, Michael Chandler, made his debut in a big way. What was it like seeing that in person? How impressed were you with his first performance in the UFC? Was this something you saw coming? Obviously, he's a guy in Bellator that was good for a very long time. Did you see him coming in and I would say dominating Dan Hooker?
Yeah, no, he shut him down. It was almost weird. Like Hooker was hesitant to throw. I think he was maybe worried about getting taken down, so he just didn't do anything for a while. And then Chandler hit him with that fucking devastating. I think it was a right hook.
Mm-hmm.
Just awesome. I mean, I didn't expect that. To answer the question, no, definitely not. I thought Dan Hooker was going to win that fight. I'm a big Dan Hooker fan. I'm also a fan of Michael Chandler. The first MMA card I ever got to cover through Barstool was the first card that Bellator did at Madison Square Garden, and Michael Chandler was on that card, and he actually lost. He lost the title on that card because he got calf kicked and the nerve shut down in his leg, which same thing that happened to Conor. It's kind of become a phenomenon in MMA, and people are going to have to learn how to defend against that, obviously. But I was excited to see Michael Chandler because I was like, oh my God, he's been a name in Bellator forever. Like Bellator's first card ever at MSG. This is like huge. Never thought he would even come over to the UFC. I thought he was like a Bellator lifer. He was one of the faces of their company.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a lot of respect for him. It wasn't like I was discounting him. I just had that much more respect for Dan Hooker. I thought him
Right.
coming off the loss, he would be a little hungrier. When he knocked him out, I was blown away. And then the best part of the story is I see Michael Chandler's manager at the airport in the airport lounge before we take off. Now, Michael Chandler's manager is also Joe Benavidez' manager. I love Joe Benavidez, one of my best friends that I've ever met through Barstool. So I've met him before, this manager. We've gone to dinner together, like before Joe's fights and stuff. Great guy. And he called me over, and I didn't know that he was Chandler's manager, to be honest. And he was like, "Oh man, let me introduce you to Mike." And I'm like, "Oh my God, this is hours after he just knocked out Dan Hooker." I'm like, "That would be awesome, sure." So I met him. I said, "Congratulations, man. That would awesome. That awesome win, whatever." He said, "Thank you." You could tell he was like emanating like positivity. He was so happy. He was like a guy that just got the win that he got. The first thing he said, he's like, I want to call Rough and Rowdy with you guys one day. He's like, I love Rough and Rowdy. He's like, you got to get me on commentary. He's like, when's the Canseco fight? And I was like, it's February 5th. And he's like, oh, that's too soon. That's too soon. Maybe the next one. I was like, bro, I will put in the word right now. Are you kidding me? Michael Chandler, you want to come on the commentary desk? So yeah, I guess that's a Brew Party podcast exclusive. But he did say he was a Rough and Rowdy fan.
I just needed a second to process that you just said the Brew Party podcast exclusive. That was incredible. I do have some R&R questions for you because I know you're calling that, and that's coming up. Just a couple more questions about Chandler because I'm genuinely curious. Like, do you think he is a legit title contender in the lightweight division?
I think if you can knock out Dan Hooker the way he knocked out Dan Hooker with one shot, yes, absolutely. Like, and now that being said, after Ben Askren beat Robbie Lawler, I was like, oh, I think he might be a title contender. Obviously, that was wrong, but that was more of a weird win anyway. It definitely wasn't as dominant as Michael Chandler. But seriously, if you could knock out Dan Hooker with one shot like that, I mean, come on, you're absolutely a title contender.
Is Hooker done? Do you see Hooker?
No, he did an interview today. This was like, and this is a good question because he threw his gloves in the cage, which is usually like the symbolic like retirement. And he said in that moment, he was like, oh yeah, in that moment, I was like, I'm retired. And then he's like, I got back to the hotel 15 minutes later, and I was like, all right, I'm not gonna retire.
What did you think of Chandler's challenge to Khabib and Conor and Poirier and all those guys after his win?
I loved him quoting Ric Flair in the promo, quoting the 1992 Ric Flair Royal Rumble promo because DC like referenced it. I mean, if you could make use of mic time like that, I'm a fan. I know people said it was a little corny. I don't care about this stuff. Like, I'm a pro wrestling fan, so if you can, like, I always say, like, call someone out. Like, make the matchmaker's job easy. They don't want to be like, who can we match up him with? It could be so and so. Just be like, fuck you, I want this guy. You're taking everything I work for, Conor McGregor. Like, that Nate Diaz call out is what got him the fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, without making that amazing call out, Conor probably would have never thought of Nate Diaz as a opponent for when RDA pulled out. So I always think calling people out and making good use of that mic time is a good idea. Absolutely.
I thought it was great. Do you think there's a chance Khabib comes back? I think, in my opinion, if he does, I feel like he comes back for one fight, goes 30-0, and then just retires again. I know, didn't he say he wants to fight GSP? Like, do you even see GSP taking a fight?
No, I think Khabib's probably done. I think you're right. If he, in the event that he comes back, I don't see him going on like another run. I see him coming back for the one fight. But it gun to my head, I don't think Khabib's coming back, especially after Poirier beat Conor. Like, he's beat everyone there is to beat, you know, pretty handily, in pretty much all the same fashion. So it's like, the GSP thing is there. I don't think GSP would come back either, though. I think GSP's probably done too.
Yeah, I just don't know what GSP has to even gain from that fight with Khabib. So one more fight I want to ask you about that's coming up in a couple weeks on the 13th. Usman versus Burns, the former teammates for the welterweight title. Do you have any thoughts on this fight? I know I'm very excited for it. I love Kamaru Usman. Do you think he has a very strong upper hand here?
I don't know if he has I would say yes with his wrestling, but it's always interesting when you have former teammates and guys that have sparred thousands of rounds against each other. They have said literally, we've spent thousands of rounds in the cage together. So it's like they know each other's weaknesses. They know what it takes to, you know, make the other guy hurt a little bit. And they've probably got some like mindset of like, oh, I remember what that guy did to me. They're probably both going in with a little bit of trepidation. So I'm very excited for this fight. I love Usman. I'm picking him in this fight. So I think he'll get it done, but I think he'll probably grind out a win. I don't know if he'll be able to like dominate.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. So are there any other fights that you're really looking forward to in 2021? I know Miocic and Ngannou, that's coming up as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's coming up in March. I was at the first fight. They had a fight in Boston at UFC 220, and it was kind of a shitty fight because Ngannou gassed after the first round, and then Stipe just laid on top of him. But that first round, I'm telling you, if you don't remember how great that was, anyone watching this, anyone listening, however you're consuming this,
yeah,
rewatch the first round of that fight. It's one of the best rounds in the history of MMA. it is crazy. The shots that Stipe takes and his head, like it's like cartoonishly bounces off his head and then pops back on out of nowhere. I think that fight's going to be awesome. I'm excited for Megan Anderson versus Amanda Nunes. Megan Anderson is such a friend of Barstool. She's done so much stuff with us in Game Time and stuff, so we always root for her. I'm rooting for the miracle to happen there. People are saying that the Holly Holm Ronda Rousey shot, that would be unbelievable. It would just be like, oh my God. And there's the triple title fight on that card as well. So you've got Stylebender moving up a weight class to challenge Jan Blachowicz, and you've got, is it Wiley Zhang? Is she defending her title on that card, or is that later? There's 3 on that one though.
Yeah. I think that's right. I think Zhang is right. I'm looking at the rankings. I don't have the schedule in front of me. That's probably something I should have had, but
UFC 258?
Yes.
Oh, it's no, it's definitely not that one then. Must be a different card. Oh, it's 259, and it's Petr Yan versus Aljamain Sterling as well. It's that bantamweight title fight. That's a banger, and I got Aljo winning that one, bringing it home for New York.
Absolutely. Let's go Sterling then. So a couple of questions I still have for you. We talked about Khabib coming back. John Jones is another name. Do you see him competing for a heavyweight title at all in 2021?
I mean, as a fight fan, I would love to. As a John Jones hater, I don't know if I would love to, because he probably comes back and he wins that title. So it's like, I don't know, he just shoves it in my face again. He's my least favorite fighter. I've gone on record many times saying I hate that guy. Once I got offered to interview him, they were like, do you want to interview John Jones? And I was like, do you guys know what I've said about John Jones? And they were like, let us just check. And they looked and they were like, never mind. We can't. No, that's not happening.
Did you give Brandon Walker shit about saying Stipe's name wrong on that NBA draft live stream he did with Coley?
I didn't, because he was so in his own head about it that he called me right beforehand. He's like, how do you say it? And I walked him through it like multiple times. I was like, Stipe Miocic, Stipe. And I'm also so bad with name pronunciation that like I'll say stuff wrong that I've said right for years, and I'll just say it wrong once, and then like I'll be like, wait, what? And then I'll get in my own head and I'll go back and forth on it for like the next year. So I didn't give him too much shit for him. I felt bad.
Yeah. I just remember watching that, and him, like, Coley, like, just would not leave him alone about it. That was an all-time Barstool clip, in my opinion. That was really funny. So one thing I want to ask you, like, one last, like, really UFC question, something that is kind of like I've talked about with some buddies. We love pay-per-view events. We love it, but, they drag on. Sometimes it's 5 or 6 hours. Do you think there's any like way that you could shorten the UFC event and still have that same product? Because I believe that they do maybe a little bit too many promos about each fighter. Like, it seems like there's 2 or 3 between each fight. And then, especially as someone that's been to a lot of fights in person, like, what is that like being there for that long? Like, do you notice it? Like, is there a lot of times?
Oh, you notice it. Yeah. I mean, being there in person, you notice it more than ever, because you're probably there for all the prelims too. So I noticed it more than ever on Wednesday. There was 14 fights on that Michael Chiesa, Uriah Hall card, or not Uriah Hall, Jeff Neal. I just looked at Uriah Hall's fighting Chris Weidman on that upcoming Kamaru Usman card. Banger of a fight, by the way. But you notice it because it's just like, oh my God, by fight 14, if they're going to decision and stuff, like you said, I mean, that card prelims to main event might have been like 7 or 8 hours. At that point, it's an entire day worth of fights. Everyone's exhausted. I think that's too many. Rough and Rowdy, that's been actually a thing for us, where we've had like cards that we've been like, man, that was way too long. By the end of the night, the crowd was exhausted. The fighters were exhausted. We were exhausted. I think we found the perfect amount now is 20 was what we did for the last card, what we're doing for this card. And me and Rowan actually did like a breakdown today of the fights. Yeah. And when they were all listed out in front of us, the first like 6 fights on the card, we were like, that could be a main event. That could be a main event. That could be a main event. Like, we have like the best fighters in Rough and Ready. That's not even like a plug. I'm actually genuinely excited about that. But I definitely think, especially the pay-per-views are better at it than TV cards, in my opinion. They got to shorten the amount of time between fights. The pacing has to get better, where it's just like, let's do one fight after the other. Like you said, maybe a little too many promos in between, something like that. But I definitely think the fight cards could get shorter.
So with you being on Fight Island, they started that at like a ridiculous time, like in the morning. What was that like, being able to like get up that early? And then especially, I don't know if you talked to any fighters about this, but like from their perspective, being able to like be ready to fight at 3 in the morning, or some guy like the main card, what, 7 or 8
Yeah.
a.m.
Yeah, so everyone, including myself, basically, like the fighters, at least the fighters, the corners, the coaches, a lot of us tried to stay on East Coast time. A lot of us were staying up through the night and going to sleep during the day. Now that became increasingly harder throughout the week because a press conference would get scheduled, or weigh-in would get scheduled, or a media day or something like that. And that has to happen during the day just for the sake of like, you need to employ workers to set it up. You need to employ like local people. You need to employ COVID checkers, and they're not going to wake up at 3 in the morning to do all that stuff. So as the week went on, I started like sleeping in like little 1-2 hour shifts. And then by the time I got on that plane home, I think that contributed to the like week-long jet lag, you know?
Yeah.
But it was definitely weird. And I did talk to some fighters about it. And the answer they all had for me was basically like, I don't know, man, we're trying our best to stay on East Coast time here.
Wow. Yeah, that's just something that's always been fresh in my mind with the fights on Fight Island, is just that internal clock. Like that has to just be so hard to adjust.
Well, it was weird too, because for the Conor McGregor card, when we showed up for prelims, it was the middle of the night. And then I went, like, as the main card was starting, I went back to the media room to get some like better Wi-Fi, and it was so bright back there. It was like blinding. I felt like a vampire. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah. I remember seeing that tweet. It was like, and then I look at my buddy, I was like, dude, it's like 7 in the morning there. Like, that's just like so crazy, because you don't really think about it when you're watching it on TV, I guess, because it's just like dark in there. You know, they have the lights, it's the arena.
Yeah.
But so that's our UFC chat, Robbie. That was awesome. Let's talk a little bit about R&R, and then I've got a couple nerdy type questions for you, and then I'll close out the show. I know I don't want to keep you too long. So R&R, obviously, it's Billy football. It's Jose Canseco. Does Billy have a chance here? Is Jose going to knock him out? I really hope not. I know Big Cat has came out and said it'll be pretty funny if it happens. I know you guys will be on the call together. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this, I guess, the main event of R&R?
Man, I'm insanely excited. I've gone back and forth on it a few times. Like when it initially got booked, I thought, all right, Billy's younger. He could probably last him cardio wise. And then as I started thinking about it, I was like, Jose Canseco has probably been in 1,000 bar fights. Like, that's not me saying he has. Don't sue me or whatever, Jose Canseco. But allegedly, probably been in 10 billion bar fights. And I was like, that's just like a different animal. It's a different kind of strength. It's a different kind of, he's got that dad strength. He's in his 50s. And now I'm kind of leaning back towards, if Billy football can withstand the first punch, I think, because we keep posting that video of Jose Canseco punching that one bag and being like, I will break you. When I see that punch, I shit myself a little bit every time, because I'm like, holy fuck, that guy's going to punch Billy football. Are you kidding me? If he can withstand that, though, I think he can win the fight. I think he can outlast him, kind of pitter patter, punch him to decision or something, and that would be awesome. But if he can't withstand that first punch, man, it's going to be a rough night. That one video, every time we post it, I'm like, oh, Jesus.
I've got no idea what to expect. It was like Jose Canseco, obviously, all the you can talk all you want about the juice and the stuff like that, and it's going to be interesting. Billy likes to talk a big game. I'm a huge Pardon My Take fan. I have the PMT football guy hat on right now. So I've been paying close attention to that. I'll be rooting for Billy football. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. Are there any, like you said, there are like so many fights on that card you could see as a main event? Any under the radar ones that people that are going to be tuning into R&R should really look out for?
Yes, absolutely. So we have a ring girl that's fighting for the first time. She's actually going to be a ring girl and fighting in a fight for the first time. We've got Travis Turman, the former heavyweight champion of the world, coming off a loss where he I don't know, his cardio just exploded on him in the ring. And then he was wearing sneakers. He blamed it on the sneakers. He said he got to wear boots again. He's returning. We have Another heavyweight championship. So the Bobby Lang, like the South Shore of Boston guy, he's like, I'm going to knock everybody out. It's wicked sweet, bro. He's returning. We've got Wade Woodruff, our middleweight champ, versus the American Ninja Warrior 2. American Ninja Warrior blamed the first loss on food poisoning, so we're going to see if that was true. Running that one back. And then we've got the BM, what is it? The BMFM, the baddest fucking midget championship. And the two guys in it are fucking like dense savages. They have like 6-packs. One of them said they squat 700 pounds. It's going to be an insane fight. Like we have like insane fights over the entire card. It's I can't wait.
I can't wait to watch it. I mean, I love you, Dave, Big Cat on the call, and then I think Caleb and Roan in the crowd as sideline reporters are better than any sports network sideline reporters.
I agree.
Out there, they are incredible. So I'll do a couple rapid fire here real quick. What are your thoughts on Jake Paul boxing Ben Askren? Do you like the move for either of those sides? I just feel like it's weird. It's a weird move for Ben Askren.
It's a weird, it is, but I look at Ben Askren and it's like he jumped to the UFC when he knew he like needed hip surgery, and he was like, this might be a big failure. And he talked a fucking big ass game, and he's like, I'm going to make some retirement money here and make sure that I never, ever have to even think about working a day in my life. So it may be a weird move for him, but man, he's going to make a lot of money from this. I bet he was smart enough to get some equity in Triller as well, because Ben is such a like tech savvy guy like that. So but the other thing, I keep getting convinced that Ben might actually be able to do it, because when you watch that Robbie Lawler fight, you go, holy fuck, he's tough. Like, what a chin on this guy. It's like, I don't know if Jake Paul can outpunch Robbie Lawler. I mean, Robbie Lawler dumped Ben Askren on his head in that fight. So I watched that and I go, maybe he can last till the end and beat him with dirty boxing. He certainly has some ugly punches. So I look at it on Jake Paul's side. I'm like, I think he's pretty smart for picking Ben as an opponent, because he could say representing the UFC, and he could be like, I'm a boxing guy who just beat an MMA guy. Whereas the casual fan will just accept that at face value. Where if you know anything about combat sports, you go, you're a guy who's been training boxing for years, and you just be a wrestler who's known as the worst striker in UFC history.
Yeah. Is there any other guys you like to see Jake Paul fight or get a chance against?
Billy Football, if he wins, that'd be sick. I mean, if we get that cross promotion. But no, honestly, the one fight, and I didn't even watch like I saw the Mike Tyson, Roy Jones, the Jake Paul, Nate Robinson. We were like kind of figuring out how to get it. I didn't care that much. I don't care that much about Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather. Truly don't. If Jake and Logan fought, that's how you make me care. Make the brothers fight. I'm in.
That would be like.
But I want it to be real too. I want them to actually hate each other at that point. I know they go back and forth. Sometimes they hate each other. Sometimes they love each other. If they actually hated each other and fought, that'd be fucking awesome.
That'd be like the internet's wet dream right now. If the Paul brothers fought, make it happen. So I'll close this out with some rapid fire questions here, a mixture of UFC and some nerdy shit, because I know you're in your blog, in your description. I'm Robbie Fox. I write about the MMA and nerdy shit, movies alike. So who has the best nickname in the UFC?
Andre Touchy Feely. His name is Andre Feely, and his nickname is Touchy.
That's awesome.
I like Andre Touchy Feely a lot.
Yeah, I'm a Bruce Leroy guy myself. I think that's incredible.
Bruce Leroy is really good. I love Thug Nasty for Bryce Mitchell, because it's just so like it fits so perfectly. I don't know why it fits so perfectly, but I look at him, I'm like, yeah, Thug Nasty, that's him.
If you had to pick a walkout song for yourself, what would it be?
I've put thought into this. It's Gasoline by Audio Slave. It's a kick-ass rock and roll song, kick-ass Tom Morello groove, Chris Cornell vocal. It's just a great song.
Who would you have walk out with you?
Like in my corner, if I could pick, like, well, it'd be like a mix of like, I'd have my brother there, because he'd definitely like be able to calm me down in the corner. I'd have Coach Kavanaugh, because how could you not go Coach Kavanaugh if you're a Connor guy? And then if I pick like, let's say 2 more people, because corner's probably 4 people, someone from Barstool, I'll take Trent, because he's my roommate. So it's like, I don't know, take him to the big show him the big lights. And boom. Grogu.
Oh, let's go. Let's go. That only took like 2 years to get to you, right?
Oh, you want to hear something crazy? I ordered that February 29th, 2020. This is before we even knew about COVID. This is before we were wearing masks. It arrived at my apartment the day I arrived in Abu Dhabi.
That's
I
some
was like, you got to be kidding me. I went to the other side of the world and it got here.
That's some Jeff D'Lo lunchbox shit.
Yes, I signed the lunchbox today. By the way, saw the lunchbox in person for the first time ever today, and he got 2 of them. So we all signed one, and he's going to auction it off for the Barstool Fund. It felt like an honor holding that lunchbox in my hand finally.
I was listening to that live, and I was just laughing my ass off because I'm just
so
really,
funny.
just really disappointed. So a couple of nerdy questions I got for you. So obviously you're a huge Star Wars fan. I know you're a Marvel guy as well. So this is a question from my buddy Chris. Obviously you have the lightsaber tattoo. We went over that. Thor's hammer or a lightsaber? Pick your weapon.
I mean, easy for me, lightsaber. I love Thor's hammer, and I'm also a Cap guy. So like when he wielded the hammer, that was something I wanted to see for so many years. I had been posting. People on Twitter were like, telling me I was crazy for saying he would get the hammer one day because I was posting like concept art or like fan art that people had made where he's wielding it. And I'd be like, this is going to happen. I swear it's going to happen. It's going to happen. They'll do time travel. They'll get the hammer back. And when it happened, oh my God, we were with such a big group at Barstool. And I was just like losing my mind in my seat. We were in the last row of the IMAX theater. And afterwards, Frankie was like, I think you just left the ground and stood on your seat. He's like, I think at one point your feet were planted on your seat. Like, I think you were right.
Hey, we're going to Borelli's, man.
I'm wearing that. Yeah, Borelli's right here. Shout out Borelli's on Long Island.
That's incredible, man. So rank the Star Wars movies for me in your Robbie Fox's personal opinion. Obviously, doesn't have to be in order. What are your favorite?
I can rank them in order. I've got it set in my mind. And now this is going to piss a lot of people off because I know The Last Jedi is a very polarizing movie, and I'm a very big fan of The Last Jedi. But I rank the Star Wars movies 5, 4, 8, 7, 6, 3, 1, 2. So that is Empire Strikes Back. That is A New Hope. That is The Last Jedi at number 3. It's The Force Awakens afterwards. Then Return of the Jedi. Then Revenge of the Sith. And then The Phantom Menace. And then Dead Last, Attack of the Clones. A lot of people think Dead Last Episode 1. I think Dead Last Episode 2. There's that scene where he says, I don't like sand. It's coarse. It's rough. It's irritating. It gets everywhere. That's just rough. But even the worst Star Wars is better than most great movies in my mind because I love Star Wars so much that I was going to throw on Attack of the Clones actually earlier today just because I was in the Attack of the Clones mood. So there's no Star Wars that I really dislike. The spinoffs, Rogue One, Solo, love Rogue One. Solo I wasn't a big fan of, but it's got the stuff in it that I take away that I'm like, all right, that was cool. I go Paul Bettany, Dryden Voss, where he's got the veins that they get redder, the angrier he gets. I was like, that was kind of sick. I look at the train robbery scene. I'm like, that was kind of sick. The bad guy who at the end we find out, spoilers, maybe isn't really a bad guy. She takes the helmet off, Enfys Nest, and she's, a girl with like long flowing hair. That was badass. So I take the positives away from even the Star Wars that I don't love.
How does WandaVision compare to The Mandalorian for you?
It doesn't compare. The Mandalorian is like, at this point, it's 2 seasons in. It might be like my favorite show in the history of television. But I have been loving WandaVision. That's a question that honestly isn't fair to answer until WandaVision's over, though, because who knows what the fuck is even going on right now.
Right. When I wrote it down, I was like, well, that's probably not fair. But I had to ask just because I know you're covering it.
For me, like if you ask Star Wars or like comic book thing, 9 times out of 10, I'll probably pick Star Wars.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Robbie. So my last question is, do you need an intern? Because I'm available.
I don't think I need an intern right now. Maybe in a post-COVID world where we're back in the office, that might be a factor. And if that's the case, I could definitely use another kid with glasses and a backward snapback.
Hey, let's do it. Post-COVID world, I'm going to hold you to that, Robbie. This has been absolutely incredible. I could not think of anybody better to have for my 50th episode. Had to do it big. A guy like seriously, I want to thank you so much for joining me. This has been so surreal. I've been following you for a few years now, and to get to talk to you like this has been absolutely incredible. Is there anything specific that you want to plug? I know you do a million things for Barstool, a million incredible things. Anything you want to plug before I let you get out of here?
Yeah, My Mom's Basement. I would say that's the number one passion projects, do you call it? I don't know, just thing that I'm passionate about, thing that I love doing at Barstool. And Rough and Rowdy this Friday. I don't know, this live, right? This coming out at least
This is live,
before Friday.
This is live. The audio will be out at the latest by like 5 a.m. tomorrow.
So whenever you're listening to this, February 5th is when Rough and Rowdy's going down. If you've never seen Rough and Rowdy, it's fun. You know, if you got nothing to watch, boxing competition on one commentary with Dave and Big Cat. And like you said, Rowan and Caleb, the best like sideline reporters in sports.
Yes.
So check out Rough and Rowdy. That's always a fun time.
Absolutely. So go ahead, follow Robbie on Twitter at Robbie Barstool, on Instagram at that Robbie Fox. Any Pup Punk shows coming in the future? Is that still a thing?
I don't think we can do anything right now. I mean, it's funny, we got offers to do like festivals in 2021 that were all like awesome, like amazing, like the coolest offers we've ever gotten. But all the festivals were like, barring, you know, COVID being done, and I don't think COVID's going to be done by the time any of those are happening. So we have talked about doing maybe like a series in the office, like our Pup Punk's version of a Tiny Desk concert, where maybe we'll do like a cover every now and then. So look out for Pup Punk content, not Pup Punk concerts. When COVID restrictions are lifted, though, we'll absolutely be wanting to get back out there.
If I have a suggestion, I would love a full song of Roan's sea shanty or his Irish diss track. That is incredible. I listen to that almost every day, more than I would like to admit. That is an absolute pop. Robbie, though, I will let you get out of here. Thank you so much for being here, man. This was awesome. Episode 50 of the Brew Party Podcast. If you're new here, make sure you follow us on Twitter, on Instagram at the Brew Party. We're on Facebook at the Brew Party Podcast. Go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube. Just search youtube.com/the Brew Party. Smash that subscribe button and that notification button. Make sure you know when we go live, at least twice a week, once or twice a week. Robbie, episode 50 of the Brew Party Podcast. A bunch of Brew Party exclusives here. Abu Robbie, Octagon Bob, the one and only Robbie Barstool. Thank you so much for being here, Robbie Fox. This is the Brew Party Podcast. I'm Andy Hopper. Have a great rest of your evening. One last comment. Pup Punk MTV Unplugged.
Yes, give us a call, Viacom. Make the call. Cut the check.
I'm there. I am absolutely there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, take it easy. Have a great rest of your Monday or whenever you're listening to this. Cheers.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Robbie.